Welcome to the Clean Power Hour Live. I'm Tim Montague. Check out all of our content at cleanpowerhour.com. Give us a rating and a review on Apple and Spotify, and please tell your friends about the show. We're dropping a pre recorded interview every Tuesday, and this live broadcast with my colleague and co host, commercial solar guy, PV Magazine journalist John Weaver. Welcome to the show.
Tim, how are you? Hope everything's nice. It's summertime officially, so all your solar should be looking good. Hope everybody's numbers are pretty.
It's a lovely summer, and of course, summer is a mixed bag because it brings heat and storms and stuff. But we're having a lovely summer here in the Midwest, basically, despite some crazy weather. We had 100-mile-an-hour winds last week, and but my sailboat survived. I was not in the sailboat at the time of the storms, so that was a good thing. And I'm going sailing this weekend, so I'm very excited for that.
Nice.
How was your 4th of July, John?
4th of July was nice. Visited friends, had a nice long relaxing weekend. Um, saw fireworks from right below them, like to the point where like I had to lay back on the grass and they were right above, so it was nice. And I brought a wine to a party, a bottle of wine to a party that everybody was drinking beer at, and so I drank the whole bottle of wine on my own, which was wonderful. Yeah,
Drinking wine on the 4th of July. I don't know. That's anathema.
yeah. So I don't know, works for me. But solar is going well. It's very busy. There's a lot of things going on. Got some stresses on projects. Signed a new project. I got a new project of the week on the document. It's one that we're signing and moving through now. We had I did my site a site visit, and there was a new nuance that we'll show you a picture of at the site. Um, there's solar's growing. There's a lot going on. And our company's growing too. Commercial solar guy. So we're trying to keep it up, man. Trying to do it. So
Keeping it real.
yes,
The
yes.
energy transition is a wonderful thing, and it is being driven by the cost adoption curve, right? We're working with this technology called solar PV or wind or batteries, and the cost adoption curve has done some amazing destruction. I learned we're going to talk about this book on the show today, a book called Climate Restoration, but I learned in that book that the cost of solar has fallen 99.6% since 1976. Which was when the first oil crisis happened here in the US. And Jimmy Carter promptly put some solar panels on the roof of the White House, uh, being the stud physicist that he was. And so 99.6, though, like that's a crazy reduction in cost in our lifetimes. But that is the power of cost adoption curves, and that's why the energy transition is happening. The energy transition is the easy part. That's the bad news. The hard part is the 800 to 1,000 gigatons, depending on who you ask and how they measure, of CO2 equivalent pollution that's in the atmosphere that we have to suck out. But we're going to talk about 4 ways that this guy, Peter Fiekowsk, has figured out we can do that economically by 2050. So there is hope. Uh, there is hope. Keep hope, John.
I have hope. I have hope. There will be some challenges. We will bear some consequences, but I do have hope. So
The other book that I'm reading has a very funny title, and that is The End of the World is Just the Beginning. So you can check that out. That's about geopolitics and the demographic shifts that are happening around the world. Very interesting take on modern civilization. The good news there is that we come out on top, according to that author whose name escapes me at the moment, but check it out. His first name is Peter, also. We have too many Peters. My dad's name is Peter. Got to hang out with Peter Montague last week, which was lovely. Or this week, sorry. It's only the 6th of July. It feels like a long time ago that we had the 4th of July.
it was a long day.
I know. The 5th of July was not a lot of fun, I have to say.
For me, it was okay.
Getting back in the office. But anyway, well, we have a little more housekeeping. We are so busy here at the Clean Power Hour doing wonderful things. And we do that with the support of Chin Power Systems, CPS America, maker of America's #1 3-phase string inverter. We want to give them a shout out. And Dino Watts Solar, dinowatts.com. Check them out. Performance monitoring and analytics platform for utility solar, including community solar. Grateful to our sponsors. We are hungry for more sponsors. This show is only possible because of our sponsors. So if you're a company that makes money and wants to reach our listeners, which are energy professionals riding this thing called the solar coaster and the energy transition, which is a huge wave of resources that are just flowing into this technology or these technologies, we would love to hear from you. You can reach out to me at tim@cleanpowerhour.com or go on the website and fill out a little form there, cleanpowerhour.com. No, it's not hard. I'm also easily findable on LinkedIn, Tim Montague. So reach out to me. We would love to get into dialogue about how you can support the show. We have a new project at the show, and that is the Clean Power Media Network. Go to cleanpower.media for that project, which is featuring several other podcasts. So please be curious, check it out. Let us know what you think. If you know of a great show in the clean energy transition that might fit the network, please reach out to me. Again, at tim@cleanpowerhour.com. That's the only housekeeping I have. I announced last week, John, that we would like to do a segment called Ask the Commercial Solar Guy. And I think that is a brilliant idea, but we have not had any questions from our audience. And so we need you to tweet about this, John.
All right.
Because you have an audience, and I'm sure we will actually get into some of your journalism this week as well, I hope.
Yep. Cool.
In PV Magazine. And I would be happy to lead off with some news from John Weaver, actually, if you have something interesting to say.
Sure. And I do like the idea of Ask Commercial Solar Guy. That'd be cool. Maybe I should tweet and LinkedIn it every week and see what we can do. The two articles that I've written since last week when we chatted, the first was something on NREL. And let me move it up toward the top of our document.
Cool.
And so NREL did a called a time motion study. And this is a interesting thing. And it's what they did. They looked at a residential installation of roofing integrated material. And one of the installations, now technically they didn't say what the product was, but I could kind of hint that there were two separate product types. One of them I thought was a Tesla roof product, solar roof, and the other may have been like a shingle product, like from GAF or Certainteed. Again, they didn't mention it, but they talked. You could get some hints that maybe it was these projects. And then they looked at two projects, but then they also looked at 19 projects that were being built with roof integrated product. Again, they didn't say what it was, but in this case, I know it's not a Tesla. And it was 19 houses. And here's the key kicker that really kind of caught my attention and made me even write NREL to ask for more questions. They said that a roofing integrated product constructed with the new house at time of new construction, as you can see on the headlines, took 44% less time to install the product than a standard solar product. And that's significant. I mean, it's almost half. If components are the same, if interconnection and permits and everything else are cheaper because it's being done at time of construction, and then we chop off, a huge chunk of labor costs. This should be, this is the way things should be happening. Now, of course, we already have an existing 100 million houses, so the retrofit market isn't going anywhere. But for new product, for new houses, new construction over the next 20, 30 years, I don't know how much we're going to build, millions of houses, tens of millions of houses. These things need to have solar integrated. And if it's costing 44% less time, that means it's going to cost X% less money. And if you integrate it into your mortgage Now we're talking a 30-year finance at whatever percent. Um, it starts to look like a cash flow positive item on day one, as long as, and this is something I want to do some work on, but as long as the solar contractors who are getting a deal with the house builders don't just jack the price up, which is kind of happening in California a bit. I'm actually working with a politician in Rhode Island to help them refine some legislation so that they can talk about numbers that are being presented as the cost of solar at new construction, because they're thinking about submitting legislation to the state and saying, hey, we can only, all new construction gets this. So it was cool to see this. There was great timing for it. Some of the lessons learned in it is that really we're just new at doing building integrated, and we mess up a bunch. When you went through the long paper, you would see the contractors were like, yeah, we needed this component and we had to wait 2 hours. And 2 hours for a residential installation is a lot when you're going to knock out a project 85-90% of it in one day. So there's a lot of supply chain upgrades and a lot of technique upgrades for this roofing integrated product for retrofits, because right now the trucks that are delivering hardware are optimized for standard modules. The supply chain, the components, the experience, the lift, just the processes are optimized for standard retrofit. So that says that we have a lot to go forward to get better at roofing integrated, and it shows that we have a great opportunity with it too. So I just thought it was cool when I went through this study and started to see this data and how it compares, and it was just neat, very neat.
Yeah, I love this. And so there's the upside of it's faster, it's more efficient, overall makes good sense. The downside is it's still more expensive to do RIPV. I'm used to saying BIPV for building integrated. Okay, RIPV, roofing integrated. I'm just going to call it all BIPV. But um, and I want to highlight that we did a great interview with GAF Energy. GAF is the largest roofing materials company in the world, and they have a dedicated division now to a solar roofing tile or roofing shingle that is installed with a nail gun, just like a composite roofing shingle. So the roofers do their job exactly the same as they are used to doing, and then you hire an electrician to come in and do the wiring, or maybe the roofers are connecting the the easy part on the roof, but then running that to the electrical closet is done by an electrician. So anyway, um, there's no doubt that BIPV is the future of solar. There's just absolutely no doubt, and so it's the early adopters who are going to win out. And if I was a roofer today, I would absolutely be a roofing and solar installer. There's just zero question about that, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, they're very different teams and very different sales cycles. So a roofer today might be very hesitant to move to solar because roofing sells at a certain rate, at a certain price, and it moves fast. And if you have this business, you got it. But if you're a bigger company and you can combine the two and be conscious and patient with both products and integrating them and having, a little more complex sales process, but maybe one that's more consistent, then what I would love for my residential company, Whaling City Solar, I would love to find that perfect roofing partner who is okay going back and forth and will work with us and we can work with them, because just be a great lead source. I think it's the best lead source that you can have out there is a roofing plus solar partner, without a doubt. So, and the one negative of BIPV is that our building stock just moves slowly. We have probably the super majority of structures that we're going to have for the next 20 years. And, we'll add 10% more, 20% more. So that leaves, the retrofit market, which is significant, 70, 80, 90% of what's going to happen. It's already built. So we just have to accept that as reality and work with it. But
Yep.
with new
Yep.
structures, I mean, it just makes just such good sense. I really love the idea of innovating on the roofing material and roofing layout to integrate racking technologies. I haven't really seen any advanced racking technologies. And then having a separate team than the mechanical solar team to do the basic electrical installation stuff. So having your electric panel already ready for the solar, having some conduit going from the solar, having space for maybe extra meters or whatever switch gear we have for the solar. Just having certain pieces of components already prepped, maybe the racks attached to the roof for things like inverters and our PV load station combiners and gear like that. Just having some forethought so that when we come out to blast the solar, there's already a bunch of stuff there, and it just makes great sense. So yeah, roofing integrated I like, and I think last week we showed that really cool all white module from
Yep.
Onyx that looked weird. It's almost as it's weirder looking than the pure black modules, which are weird. Like you can look at them and you can swim in them. They're so dark you can just fall into them forever. Like my background here this week. Um, but
John
but
Weaver,
yeah,
Lost in Space.
yeah.
Um,
So yeah, roofing integrated. Big fan of it. I really hope Tesla figures out their half of it because they have such a nice product that they've made. They got to figure out how to scale.
yeah, it is. It is interesting how much trouble Tesla's had with their roofing tile, and I don't hear a lot of good news about it, honestly. Um,
It's beautiful.
it's beautiful, okay, granted, but it's super expensive and super hard to install, I think.
Yes.
And so anyway, they're working on it, and I get it. I have a glimmer of what Elon Musk's vision is, and he gets it, right? That BIPV is the future. He's very clear about that. He was an early adopter, clearly. Not that there weren't earlier adopters, you know, building solar shingles have been around for decades and in various flavors. There's just not one that has truly gone mainstream. I think GAF is on the right track with a nailable shingle. So check out the interviews on cleanpowerhour.com with GAF, Ray Holmes, who is the VP of product for GAF Energy. And he came from, interestingly, he came from Tesla and Solar City. So he was intimately involved with the solar shingle or solar tile project, so to speak, at Tesla, and decided to go elsewhere. So anyway, let's keep moving. Uh,
Talk
I'm
about your book.
Yeah, I wish this was my book. This is an amazing find. I have to thank my father actually for bringing this to my attention, and I'm just going to put the Amazon page on screen. But this gentleman named Peter Fiekowsk, who is a astrophysicist by training, and he worked for years as an entrepreneur in the AI space. He came up with a vision technology for manufacturing. I don't know the details, but anyway, he now and again comes back to, and now full time, climate change and how humanity can step back from the brink of climate chaos. His book is titled Climate Restoration: The Only Future That Will Sustain the Human Race. And what Peter has done, and I'm about halfway through this book now, so I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of it, but he has broken down the key elements of stepping back from the brink. In other words, net zeroing the economy, that's 40 gigatons of CO2 pollution, and then removing 1,000 gigatons or 1 billion tons of carbon pollution from the atmosphere using 4 pillars. And the pillars have 3 things in common. Those 3 things are that they are permanent. So these are solutions that will last for hundreds or thousands of years, not just a few decades. They are scalable, meaning we can do them en masse in the current time frame, right? We have to be doing this action today. And then that they're fundable or financeable. So permanent, scalable, and financeable. And the 4 things are synthetic limestone manufacture, seaweed permaculture, ocean iron fertilization, or OIF, and enhanced atmospheric methane oxidation. Now, those four things, John, I would be very surprised if you hadn't heard of all of them or most of them, but I had not heard of enhanced atmospheric methane oxidation, I have to say. Are you familiar with all these four things?
2 and 3, I've heard a bunch about.
Yeah.
1, a super tiny occasionally, and I think that's associated with like concrete manufacturing and stuff.
Yep.
And so I've heard tiny bits of it around that. Number 4, I haven't heard, but I'd like to throw on number 5, in that one hypothesized pie in the sky idea is that we get better at CO2 extraction just straight from the atmosphere, and we
Yeah.
do something parallel to number 1, and we figure out how to make building materials. Because remember, we are taking out carbon and oxygen, and carbon can be turned into many things, including carbon nanotubes and all kinds of weird stuff. So, I think I just have this weird idea that one day we'll be able to go straight from the atmosphere into some sort of carbon fiber, carbon nanotube, carbon whatever, and build stuff with it, which is really parallel, I think, to number 1. And if we go straight to concrete, sweet, or limestone, great. I guess that's a parallel idea. But really, I think the number 1 thing about removing CO2 from the atmosphere is turning it right into something right away. And if we can turn it into bricks, wonderful. And if that's what the limestone is doing, if we're doing something else with it, like fertilizer, awesome.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know,
kind
but
of all of the above. You can just take CO2 and pump it down into the ground in the right geologic formation, and it will turn to limestone in places like Iceland, for example. Now, this isn't true of every place, so you have to be careful, and you have to make sure the chemistry and geology is proper for that. So anyway, and then you can also just capture it and turn it to stone via various processes. It is energy intensive. But as you and I know, we are just truly swimming in energy. We have 5,000 to 10,000 times more solar alone than humanity uses. And so we do need to install a lot of solar and wind and batteries to fuel all this industrial processes. And that is a point that he makes. But the technology is there today to do this. And yeah, make building materials. And it won't just be limestone, it will be things like carbon nanotubes and other materials that we make out of carbon that can be made into useful stuff like buildings, etc. So that's all well and good. And but yeah, I'm reaching out to Peter on LinkedIn, and if you're a friend of Peter's, please let him know that we would love to bring him on to the show here on either the Thursday Live or a pre-recorded interview. So very much looking forward to meeting Peter Fiekowsk, Fiekowsky, and his co-author is Carole Douglis. So check that out. And we're going to talk about not John's project of the week,
oh,
VTOL airplane. Are you back, John?
I'm moving stuff around on you, man. How about, can we talk about that rooftop solar was overlooked in New England, and people were like, we don't think it's going to work. And then suddenly rooftop solar, they said, oh, it's so good that we're now going to cut down the mystic.
I don't understand when you say rooftop solar was overlooked. Yes, we can talk about this. But
Yes.
when I'm on the East Coast, which I was just recently in the Hudson Valley, I see a lot of rooftop solar. There's more rooftop solar in New York State than most other places I visit in the United States, I have to say. My sister commented that she was in Florida recently and saw very little rooftop solar, and I explained to her she can thank Florida Power & Light for that. But
Yep. It was before then. It was before. Actually, no, it was then, but it was back in the 70s when the laws really got hammered. But yes, and that's why a commercial solar guy is based in Massachusetts. Okay, so here's a story. So it's the next story on the paper. It's from the EE News, and the article title is "Rooftop Solar Was Overlooked. Now it's closing a New England power plant." And the people who said it was overlooked are the people who are managing the ISO region. So the service operator, I can't even remember what the I stands for right now. But the ISO, the New England ISO, and they are the grid managers. And they're now saying that rooftop solar is providing so much consistent energy that it's enough to shut down the Mystic Power Generation Station, which is a gas plant that's, I think, 1.4 gigawatts. And they say that that gas plant, which was a peaker, isn't going to be necessary very soon because of rooftop solar. And now the New England ISO website, they now have, because they show all the different generations. They have all these cool little charts you can click on and look at and see, oh, here's how much energy, here's what it costs, here's the wholesale. Just like California's ISO has their neat site. But New England ISO added rooftop behind the meter solar, which is even better than rooftop. Because rooftop is one thing, it's behind the meter and standalone, but behind the meter solar is added. And this behind the meter, this rooftop volume is so significant, it's shutting down power plants. And I think that's awesome. And so I'm happy that it's happening up here in the Northeast, and New England has some of the largest rooftop behind the meter solar installations in the nation. Specifically, Massachusetts, with its SMART programs, has got like 15 or 17% of its electricity coming from behind the meter solar, which is a small scale solar, which is huge. I don't think anyone else is anywhere near such a high number for specifically behind the meter small scale. But I would say that California has a huge amount too. I just percentage wise, because Cali's got everything else too. Because in New England, we don't have much large scale solar. It's almost, in Massachusetts, it's all 5 megawatts or lesser, because those are the programs that were in place. We don't really have the utility scale big land. So
what are the states in the New England ISO, by the way? Do you know?
Yeah. So we got Vermont, we got Massachusetts, we got Connecticut, we got Rhode Island, we got New Hampshire, we got Maine. So northeast of New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And New York is its own ISO, right?
New York is NY ISO. Yeah, of course. Yeah. New York, New York's like California. They're like, if California and Texas got it, we got to have it on our own. So yes, they're their own ISO. And, states like southern states, southeastern states have a lot of control on a state level. So Florida, in essence, runs its own grid. Alabama runs it, Georgia runs it, North Carolina, South Carolina. So, different states, they don't have regional authorities like PJM and, Southwest Power Pool, stuff like that.
Right.
So, yeah, so rooftop solar was overlooked. We love rooftop solar. That's it. I just want to talk about that.
Good story. Shutting down gas plants because of rooftop solar. It's significant. And the reason we're installing so much rooftop solar is because it is economical. We have to remind our listeners, it is the economics that are driving the clean energy transition, and it's game on. And we're just getting started. But by 2050, the grid is going to be 50% solar here in the US and globally. And so get into it. If you're not into it, tell your kids. We need 1 million electricians. 1 million electricians. And so let's talk about this solar project of the week. Solar site visit Friday. Got seagull nests and eggs, shells, and at least 4 flying poop warning shots. Birds didn't like you being on their roof, John.
Make sure you show the pictures, man. At least of the nest. It's nice roof, 114 kW. I was on it on last Friday, and just had to take a few pictures. This is me climbing into my little hatch, and that hatch was kind of annoying to open. We had to had to fiddle with it. It was locked from the roof, so I had to get on a different way, come back, whatever. But then, just have a normal flat roof. On the one side of it, there's a bunch of stuff. The other side's halfway clear, and there were 3 roofs, so we could, bounce around 3 sites. But the real key thing is that there were seagulls everywhere, and I learned something interesting from the customer. They said a few years ago they did a new roofing material. They put up like a white stone. Yeah, there goes an egg. We're gonna have to, manage this. We'll see when we get on the roof and whether that bird is still. I'm guessing the egg's gonna hatch long before we start our solar, because that egg's been laid. Yep. But we're gonna have to manage it. But I was told that the old roof. This is gonna be the issue, Tim. Tim, do you know what that is?
That's a conch shell.
Yeah. What the heck is a conch shell doing on a roof and with 10 or 15 of its friends?
It's
It
trying to become seagull food, I think.
yes. And you know what happens with conch shells and how that process works? They get dropped from the sky and
That's
dropped
no
on solar
bueno. Yeah,
panels.
that's painful for a solar panel.
Yes, sir. So the roof used to be a white stone, and now it's a black mat.
Hmm.
So they took off the white ballast, and so we're gonna have to deal with seagulls and stones, and we're gonna tell the customer, you guys need like 10 panels extra sitting in your storage, and we got to figure out how to
Yeah,
work with you and take care of everything. So,
yeah, that's the way to do it. Is just have some extra panels. You might, you know, lose one here and there, but it's not going to be
mhm.
catastrophic. What could be catastrophic is hail. And uh, man, I saw a crazy photo
Yeah, you
last.
want me to go find it?
Yeah, go find that crazy photo
Absolutely. I know the one you're
of
talking about in
a site
Nebraska.
that, yeah, a
Oh,
site that got hit in the Great Plains. Virtually, if not all, of the solar panels were
yeah.
shattered.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, dude. I mean,
I
the
mean,
picture was
it's a
rough.
common question, you know, when you're dealing with commercial or utility solar. So, do the panels resist hail? And the answer is yes, up to 1 inch.
Hmm.
And you know, an inch is a good size hailstone. You don't want to be out in a 1 inch hailstorm.
No.
That would be painful and very dangerous. But hail does get quite a bit bigger, and you can have 2, 3, 4 inch hail, and
All
then you're going
right.
to have a lot of busted glass.
I'm going to share my
Um,
screen real quick, sir. Show a picture. Solar farm pelted. All right. Can you
yeah,
see that?
what was black panels are now white because the glass is shattered.
Oof.
Uh, and what a bummer.
Yeah.
Um, hope.
4.3 meg AC. So, like, not a small project. So, we're talking like 6 megs, 5.5 DC.
Hmm.
Apparently, the same storm, the same cell injured 8 people at a coal mine. Wow, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
This is a different one. Man, look at
I,
that, man. You can see, I mean, and it wasn't just one piece of hail, Tim. I mean, these things, you can see like
right.
dozens of spots on each one. Man,
Yeah.
that's that's rough. So that's whew, it was 5.2 megawatt system. Jeez. So there you go. Man, that thing got whacked. That was a system that just took a beat in there. So um, yeah, gotta account for it.
Yeah. I know an entrepreneur who's working on a solution for this, and look forward to meeting him at RE Plus in Las Vegas in September. If you don't know about RE Plus, it's the largest solar and storage conference in the US, and it's going to be in Vegas this year. So come meet us, hang out, drink beer, and network with thousands, tens of thousands of solar professionals. You found an electric airplane, John.
I like electric airplanes. I love the concept of it, and there's cool stuff. You know, we talked about some batteries in the last couple of shows, where the weight, the watts per kilogram, I guess, the watt hours per kilogram is a measure, and we're moving upwards. It seems like magic is starting to arise, and so flying stuff is going to become real. Lots of flying stuff, not just a little, but a lot. And I'm really interested in some of the reading I'm hearing about business plans where they're thinking that the sub-regional market could massively change if we started. Oh yeah, check that out. The sub-regional market could massively change, which is it's a very complicated looking airplane, but you know, I guess it's what it is, or a
Yeah, it looks
helicopter or
it
something.
looks more like a drone.
Yeah.
But I count 6 propellers. But
VTOL.
it's actually carrying humans, huh?
Yeah, yep. People in there flying. This was out in California.
Yeah.
Picture's not loading the best there, but whatever.
So this was
Uh,
a VTOL, meaning it takes off vertically, but then it can also fly. So maybe it has a wing in there somewhere. It's hard to see really the shape of
mhm.
the aircraft. Yeah, for some reason the video is not loading very well, but here we go. I blame Elon. It's Twitter.
You're probably right. I don't know. Our connection's a little funny too, but I mean, you get a nice clear view of it there. So I like this concept of the shorter flights, the half hour to 2 hours to 3 hours. Really, these are flights that should be taken by public transportation, trains, other things like that.
Yeah.
But if we could, get people out of their cars on the highways on 100-seat airplanes that were electric and just cleaner, smoother, faster. I think there's something there. This is neat looking. I mean, those rotors are all in sync. Oh gosh, that's a cool, and it's electric, dude. That's the key thing. It's not burning fossils, and it's just cool gear, man.
Yeah, I think the age of electric air transport really is upon us. It'll be slow at first, and then it'll be fast. Um, there's a story in the Guardian, which I'll put on screen here in a second, about Toyota having a battery breakthrough. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, that was one of the things I was mentioning. Didn't we cover it last week? I think we covered it already a couple of weeks ago because I brought it up immediately when it hit the news stream.
I don't think so. I don't think we talked about this. I would remember it because Toyota is such a standout, right? They're holding on tooth and nail to the ICE engine and their hybrid technology, and not doing a lot of EVs. They have one EV on the market, I think, in the U.S. But they're now claiming they could make a solid state battery with a range of 745 miles that charges in 10 minutes. And that's a lot of charge in a very short time.
Yeah. Well, first off, that would mean that people have 1 megawatt plus chargers in their house. So we're not gonna do that. But yes, it's gonna be something cool. You know what? I can see that we referenced it on the document, but we didn't have the article on it, which is weird. It's an aberration for how I would post articles for us. Sorry, but yeah, Toyota. I mean, I can go find that, but that's getting some headlines and getting some interesting pushback in conversation. That battery, because
I got it on screen now.
Oh.
Who knows? Maybe it's hype. It's so funny because Toyota, it's like 1 week they're in the EV industry, the next week they're out. They're sending a mixed signal. I'm no longer loyal to Toyotas. I owned many Toyotas. Now I own a Hyundai, and I love it. And now I don't own a Hyundai EV yet, like you do.
Tim.
But I know it's pathetic. It's really no bueno. I got to drink that Kool-Aid again. It's funny. My son, Finn, the solar installer, drove my brother's Model Y over the holiday. And I asked him afterwards, so did you miss the Model Y? Because we had a Model Y for a while, as you know. And he looked at me, he said, nah, the thing phantom braked 3 times in 15 minutes, he said. So he didn't like the self-driving in the Model Y. He was very disapproving. So that was telling. Although I also read recently that the Model Y is the most popular car in the world now by numbers.
Yep.
I don't know if we reported that on the show or not, but and it will be the most popular car in America soon if it's not already. So Elon is doing something right. Very few things.
I mean, there's been people predicting that the Model Y would become the most popular U.S. car.
Well, you and I think, right?
We've been hearing it, people talking about it. We've been chatting about it too.
I believe it will be the most popular car in America. It's just a great car and the right size. The price point is a little tough, but it's coming down. And
well, if you use
the
total
federal
cost
incentives,
of the car,
the Teslas are eligible for the federal tax break, are they not?
Yeah, they are, and they're evolving. Like they might be a car that'll turn out to be a fully Tesla, a full tax break, $7,500. But it's evolving. You have to pay close attention to that and double check. So, Regarding this Toyota battery, what do you have there? Because of concerns of wheels can
It
fall off.
said
Yeah,
last year Toyota recalled 2,700 of its first EVs because the wheels could fall off, literally.
yeah.
That doesn't sound like the Toyota I know, but anyway. Um,
It's cool to see these batteries. There's other people doing other things. The Chinese came out with a new battery at 700 watt hours per kilogram. Carole has one that they're selling at. CATL has one that they're selling at 600.
yeah, we
We're
reported
gonna
on
see.
that,
There we
right?
go.
And that makes
World's best-selling car, Q1. Sorry, just
yeah,
interrupted you. Thank you,
yeah,
Facebook user.
yep. But that 700 watt hours per kilogram, that makes electric airplanes practical, I think.
Now, I think that's on the cell pouch level, so it's not like one or
Yeah,
two pieces higher. So maybe it'll be 600, but 700, man. That's, I was reading year 3 ago that 400 to 500 watts were it. And then somebody gave me a real neat stat. They said for each additional um, volume of watt hours per kilogram, you get this much distance out of the plane. So there's some good hard calculations on what's necessary for aviation and energy storage. And there are people working great at it. So I'm getting more and more optimist about how we're going to deal with airplanes. And I'm getting a little more pessimist on any sort of hydrogen travel. And I almost put an article in the document that two things have occurred. A European truck industry group has said that they're not going to go forward with hydrogen trucks because for major road deliveries, because they're just too expensive, cost is way too high, and
yeah,
they're going to push with electric.
yeah,
And then a large mining group said that they're going with electric. They've been doing electric and hydrogen mining vehicles, and they said nope, electric is where we're going. So that tells me that the big trucks, the big vehicles, they got to lead with electric. And having a company like Tesla scaling the battery costs, having your battery scale with your laptops, with your phones, with all that stuff. It's just giving, there's such a lead with lithium ion technology that it's gonna attack and it's do well. And hydrogen is gonna have to figure out how to scale separate from vehicles, because the reality is when you look at the stats, you some document I saw from like Bloomberg, it showed the volume of electric cars being sold, and then it showed the volume of hydrogen, and the hydrogen was just a flat line.
right.
Pardon me, sorry.
It's interesting when you Google hydrogen trucks in the US, okay, you find stories about Hyundai. Hyundai has launched a hydrogen fuel cell truck in the US. You read about Volvo. You read about Nikola, although barely. Like
Fake
Nikola's
company.
been so absent from the news, right? And they had that major implosion, fake news, right? And you and I predicted that that was just not going to end well, right? They were a bunch of scammers.
They're about to
Um,
go out of business. They switched from hydrogen to electric trucks. Just
oh, they
they're
did.
about to go out of business. Yeah, they're not a hydrogen company anymore. I mean, maybe they do, but the
Oh,
only thing they're selling are electric trucks now, like from
oh,
something else. Yeah,
interesting.
that company's going out of business.
And the fact that
They're-
Elon doesn't believe in hydrogen is says a lot, right? Because as I had to point out to my dad over the holiday, Elon just wants to go to Mars, and going to Mars is very expensive. And while he does talk about, yeah, greening the grid and creating a sustainable transportation industry, which is true, he wants to make sustainable electricity and transportation with solar and EVs. He truly just wants to fuel his mission to Mars. And to do that, he wants to do stuff that's economical. And he's very precise about that, right? And so the fact that he's not going after hydrogen, I think, is quite telling. And nobody's had a good retort, really, to me about that. Like, if it's so good, why isn't Elon doing it? The same with alternative battery chemistries. He's doing lithium batteries. He's not doing zinc batteries. He's not doing manganese. There's a lot of alternative chemistries. Now, for stationary, it's a different matter. For stationary storage, you've got the iron air battery, for example, which is massively heavy and voluminous, but it's going to be cheap. And so for grid storage, it makes perfect sense, right? You just build a big bunker and fill it with iron air batteries. I love that. We need lots of storage because the sun is intermittent, unfortunately. I don't think it would be fun living in a world where the sun was not intermittent, though, John.
Might be a little warm forever, every single day, forever and ever, and ever and ever.
What a nightmare.
Yeah. So, hey, real quick, I want to introduce everybody to Caesar, who just said hello in our chat.
Caesar Barbosa. Hey, Caesar.
Yes. So Caesar is the thing that I know him about is as a recommission rooftop solar guy in California mostly. And he has great posts and great data and images on LinkedIn. And if you really want to see some of the process about how a rooftop solar project will come out, how beautiful it can look once it's all stacked nicely on palletized, and then how it gets redeployed when the roof gets redone. Caesar and his group, it's going to take me 10 seconds to come up with his company name. It's dang it,
Yeah,
Caesar,
no
I should have known it. It's New Life.
Well, the invitation stands, Caesar. If you want to come on the live sometime, we'd love to talk to you again. It's been over a year, I think. So
New Life Power Services. That's Caesar's shop. So Caesar,
what are you doing July 13th, Caesar? We could bring you on the show. We love having guests on the show, and repowering old solar facilities is very important. That's going to be a huge industry, and repurposing the solar panels to give them a second life in a less developed country or a low income community. These things last a long time, and there is a second life for solar panels. So
yeah, and I think Caesar just said at your service, so now we got to message him on LinkedIn and start the conversation. But one neat thing that Caesar does as part of his sales package is that if for a project that's getting rid of their solar or doing new solar, he offers a breakdown of the components that he's going to sell to buyers of the gear. So he will manage the selling of your hardware, getting into the second life. And I think he offers the customer we'll have to ask him now because it looks like we're going to get him on the show. And Christopher, Mr. Letman, I will contact you two via LinkedIn because I'm connected with both of you. But Caesar, he gives customers a dollar amount saying, hey, we'll sell your hardware for this. Your takedown price will be this. And somewhere within that machine, customers get to sell their hardware via Caesar's group, which I think is cool. So anyway, back to the document. And Caesar, you'll be on the show soon.
Awesome. Well, we got to continue our theme here with the EV revolution. You found a story about using your EV for other things. And it says, for the first time, we blocked some of our cars because they could create more value as a battery than as a shared car. What's that about?
So there's places around the world where you can connect your battery to the grid and your car to the grid, and via a V2G, vehicle to grid connection, you can sell that electricity. And this gentleman, I believe, is based in the Netherlands, could have been in Germany, but they're a car share service. And I know him via Twitter. Well, I don't really know him. Someone else knows him. I saw them shared, and they rent cars. And they said, via the tweet, you can see it there, the tweet that was shared and the video and everything. And they have a little image of the, and so this is I guess you can't really see it clearly, but if we, if you follow the link to it, you can see that the cars are exporting electricity to the power grid. And they're doing it overnight, which is interesting. So they're exporting overnight and they're importing during the daytime, charging in the daytime, because there's a huge amount of solar to be used on that local grid. And these are two Ioniq 5s. So this is my car. They have a really high speed. They have nice size batteries, like 75 kW. These guys charge on solar. And it's just cool. It's just cool that we are using car batteries for the grid. And it's the neatest thing is that we at least have this option, because we're going to have so many car batteries on the road that we could back up the grid. We could back up everything with our car batteries, and we would just be fine. And if we, you know, this is all the pie in the sky thinking, but if we were to ever do anything like 100% of our cars on the power grid, then battery backup would be great, because number one, load demand would be coordinated, because the car in the United States is generally associated with the local location of the human being, and the human being drives electricity demand. And so if it became a normal thing that when you showed up to a place you always plugged your car in, you would in essence be bringing your energy, you bringing your backup, bringing your capacity to where you are. And if you're driving electricity demand and you bring a battery, it just seems to jive as having a certain level of value. So yeah, look at that,
Yeah.
5%. They're parked 95% of the time, man. So this
Yeah.
is, we got to move to the future with this.
This is a clear win-win for EVs. 75 kWh, that's a week's worth of electricity for the average home. And of course, you got to have a way to charge that battery with a solar array if you want to have power when the grid is down. But that's a very big power bank, right? And it makes perfect sense that that vehicle to grid is going to be a great service that these EVs make for us. And then once we robotize the vehicles, someday I'll probably be in the grave, John, by the time Musk figures that out. But he will eventually figure out self-driving, and and then you won't need a vehicle. You'll just use transportation as a service. The robot will pick you up and deliver you where you need to go, and then it'll go back to providing grid services when it's not needed, or we just won't have nearly as many vehicles. Um, the other thing I like to say is that today, less than a percent of Americans have a battery in their garage. In 10 years, many Americans will have a battery in their garage of some shape or form. Um, my father does not want to have a lithium battery. I told him, look, Elon is figuring out the thermal runaway thing. You very likely will have a lithium battery, but maybe a zinc, maybe an iron. There's alternatives. And I want an iron air battery in my garage.
I want to go visit one, man. I can't, I want to definitely go visit an iron, just see what's out there, because they're cool.
What is the iron air battery company called again?
Form, there's Form
Yeah,
Energy, and
Form.
there's what's it called also? ESS. They're both iron batteries, iron
Okay.
flow batteries. So
Yeah.
they're both cool. I like them both. All right, what's next, Tim? What are we gonna talk about? We got a million things to talk about every day.
We've got no shortage of stories. Sammy Roth had two article series come out, one
Yeah.
talking about challenge deploying solar in the Southwest deserts. I'm interested in solar in the Southwest. Oh, right. Yeah, this is a legit story.
Yeah.
Um, and a bummer. There's the clean energy transition is not without its foibles. Let's be clear, right? It comes at a
Hmm.
price, and we are going to have to install solar onto 1.5 to 2% of the landscape, including the already built environment, but including some not built environment because of the scale and the economics, right, of solar farms. They're just much easier and faster to install at scale. But it does mean putting solar on land. And some of that land it has other things going on, like tortoises in desert Southwest. And so that habitat destruction is a real thing and a real concern. I'm more upbeat about taking farmland, which is here in the Midwest, corn and beans, with heavy chemical inputs, heavy carbon footprint, and converting it to either pollinator friendly or agri-solar dual use, and then it's a win-win. We're already stomping on the ecosystem with that industrial ag. Not so much in the desert Southwest because you can't grow stuff because you don't have water, and that problem is not going away.
Yeah. So the story, first off, the story by Sammy is great. And Sammy in general, he's one of my favorite people to read about solar. He, in my opinion, might be the one of the better non-trades people to really get into the meat of things,
Yeah.
because he writes a lot more than just solar. And if you follow him on Twitter, you'll learn about Dodger baseball too. But first I started following Sammy when he was writing for a smaller local paper, and he broke a story about a conflict of interest with consultants and a big battery that was like tens of millions of dollars, and the battery deal went to nothing because California taxpayers might be getting defrauded. So Sammy's great. Now this story, as he said, it talks about the stresses of the desert region and getting solar deployed and how much faster it can be. And there's a lot of pristine desert that's beautiful stuff down there and real life. And I've traveled through that area, Joshua Tree National Park. It's really just another
hugely
place.
diverse.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And as a South Floridian, you're thinking, oh, it's desert. It's the Sahara and it's all grass. When you get there, you're like, oh my gosh, this is just a different version of the Everglades. Weird looking trees and lizards and just plants on the ground. It's like, wow, this is something. And so I'm conscious of it. And I'm, I've heard that some of these projects have been put in very challenging places. So, but there's one thing I wanted to push back, and I'm going to write a story and we'll have it in a week or 3. It's that some of the data Sammy uses for quantifying how much rooftop and parking lot solar can be deployed is a little dated. And I want to write an article and respond to this and say, hey, and I did already a long tweet thread showing that we actually could get a huge amount of solar electricity from rooftop and from carports, and those two alone. And that the amount of electricity that we could get is increasing because our panel efficiency is increasing. NREL did an analysis that suggested, with a little bit of, NREL analysis plus load growth has suggested that normally we can get 13% of our electricity from rooftop solar with a 16% solar panel. But if we double our 16% solar panel to 32% perovskite plus silicon, which is coming, then now we're at 26% of all electricity coming from rooftop solar. Now, Tim, if we believe that wind power is real and hydro is real and nuclear is real, then we should say that 40%, here's one pitch: 40% solar, 40% wind, 10% nuclear, 10% hydro, something like that, which would mean 40% of our electricity needs to come from solar. And if 26% of it can come from rooftop alone, 26 of that 40, then that means we need 14% from carports. And we already know that parking lots and carports can double what rooftops can do. So hypothetically, and this is in the extremist world of a pie in the sky dreamer like you and I, we could get all of our electricity that we need from solar from rooftops and parking lots. We could get 40% of our energy. And so that's where I'm going to give an elbow to Sandy's.
Well, and the figure he gives is 25,000 square miles. That is 0.07%. It is less than 1% of the land area in the United States. So, again, we have to remember, we're not paving over the breadbasket. We do have to be conscious of paving over the desert. And I would say let's find those areas that are already, negatively impacted by human activity and build solar farms there, and give them a priority. And, and various programs, to their credit, in the United States do incentivize the use of brownfields, right?
Yep.
And Massachusetts, New York, Illinois, I'm sure California, I know less about the California market, but less, Nevada may be a different story. I don't know.
All these places are going to get a lot. Nevada has a lot of pristine deserts as well, and Nevada's getting a lot of ground mount solar, including some of it that's being sent to California. So, we got to take care of these places.
Yeah. Well, we've done it
again.
Leave. We've
You gotta
used
go.
up another useful hour of your day, and we'll be back hopefully with Cesar Barbosa next week on Thursday the 13th. I want our listeners to please check out cleanpowerhour.com. Give us a rating and a review on Apple and Spotify. Tell your colleagues about the show. That's the best thing you can do to spread the word about the Clean Power Hour. Check out the Clean Power Media Network, cleanpower.media, and reach out to me, Tim Montague, on LinkedIn. How can our listeners find you, John?
Commercialsolarguy.com. That's our website. We got a contact us page. Got a good contact us there. Also via Twitter and LinkedIn. More than happy to discuss things, go over things. We want to build projects for you in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, New York, and Pennsylvania. We want to develop projects for you and consult. And we have a residential company that's super focused in Mass. Commercial projects, we go a little further. And that. So, Tim, where can people learn how to get their own podcast? And don't you have like 7 podcasts now that you manage for people, like something significant?
Well, we're bringing a family of podcasts to our listeners via cleanpower.media. This includes Sean White and Peter Kelly Detweiler and a handful of others. We'll be bringing these other podcasters onto the show. Many of them have already been on the show. Sean White is a household name in the solar industry, of course. So check out cleanpower.media. If you're a podcaster in clean tech or clean energy, please reach out to me. I'd love to learn about your show and see if it's a fit for the Clean Power Media Network. I also want to give a shout out. I forgot at the beginning of the show, John, to thank our friends at MREA. I was at the Energy Fair earlier this month at the end of last month. The Midwest Renewable Energy Association. I saw Joe Scharf there. Thanks for being here, Joe. Good to see you in the flesh again. Joe is a native Midwesterner. He's actually from Wisconsin. He owns a farm in Wisconsin. Now he lives in Northern Illinois, and he's breaking into the solar industry, getting out of the tree industry. He's an arborist, but he's also a mechanical engineer. And we had a nice chat at the 32nd Energy Fair. So that Energy Fair has been going on for a long time. I first visited in 2006. And so I got to see some friends. Shout out to MREA, though. They do great work. Wonderful training facility. They train many, many solar installers who are pursuing NABCEP certification. So with that, I want to say sayonara, John, and we will see you next week. Thanks for being here. I'm Tim Montague. Let's grow solar and storage.